Nobody amongst in our family is even in business.
And in business, things always don't go as per plan. So the client timelines got delayed by a month. So we had to sort of again plan. That was the first learning lesson in business, that, always plan for the worst.
The risk taking is something that differentiates a normal person going to work and an entrepreneur.
The next outlet onwards, we place ourselves in mall locations.
Even in India, the top aggregators over there aren't making money. They're bleeding.
When we got engaged, for example, and he did not have a job.
हाय गाइस, वेलकम बैक टू द फैट किड शो, जहां हम करेंगे गपशप एकदम ही अनफिल्टर्ड। अगर आपने मेरे चैनल को अब तक सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया तो प्लीज डू नॉट फॉरगेट टू सब्सक्राइब टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल, फॉलो अस ऑन स्पॉटिफाई, एप्पल पॉडकास्ट, Amazon Music and also Angami. UAE has more than 13,000 restaurants and that's the highest in the MENA region. So per restaurant के पीछे 846 लोग होते हैं. But with so many restaurants having a very good running cafe or any business is super difficult. Plus, do not forget about the part that there are multiple nationalities here. Today, I've got the founders of the Booker Cafe at the show and we are going to explore the market and of course their restaurant business as well. Hi Rashmi, hi Parth, welcome to the Fat Kid Show.
Hi. Happy to be here.
पहले से तो यही स्टार्ट करना है कि your aesthetic of the cafe. Oh my god, I cannot get over it. What was the thought behind it?
So I think the Booker Cafe, if you use another word for our brand, it would be nostalgia. So everything that you see in our brand, whether it's the food, the ambience, the decor on the wall, the music that you listen to, it is meant to take you back to an era that you lived, maybe, in your college days or school days or, mummy ka dabba, so many things. So all of our ambience is created in such a way that it reminds you of a time that you adored.
Who was the brain behind you?
I think so. It's a little bit of the both of us. All right. We come up with, nice and quirky ideas whenever we are designing any of our outlets. We sit every morning on our couch, sip on coffee, open Pinterest, and look at, pins that we've pinned down for ideas for the next concept that we're launching, and what decor, what details we want on the walls, what sort of artworks we want to, represent on the walls. That's something that the both of us sit and ideate. Yeah.
Before we deep dive into more about Booker Cafe and the journey and the marketing aspect, I want to know, how did you guys get into the cafe business, the food business?
So back in the day, so our first business is a marketing agency that we've co-founded in almost 2014. And, we always had something in mind that let's open a cafe or let's open a restaurant, which will be like a legacy business that we can leave behind, and that people probably know us by. And that's how we came up with the idea. We saw that there was a gap in the market back in 2018. We didn't find any good Indian casual dining spots. And we thought, let's look to create that in Karama with our first outlet. And we went crazy with the decor. We thoroughly enjoy the process of doing the outlet up. She curated all the dishes, with all recipes on the menu are hers. So we came up with all of this, and we opened the doors to the public, I think so sometime in January of 2018, and we almost instantly went viral. I don't know how. I think so people just fell in love with the concept, and I think so our time to market was relatively good. There wasn't any concept like us doing what we were doing back in the day. And we had people waiting for like 1.5, 2 hours right on the footpath. And, we had a lot of angry customers because they were not getting seats. And we aren't from the F&B background. We're like
just
new age entrepreneurs.
Your family?
Nobody amongst in our family is even in business. So everybody is either an engineer or in service. We are in our all third generations. We are the first people to actually step into entrepreneurship. And that is also an interesting story. I think when we left our jobs, we did not even tell our parents that we left our jobs and we started the first business. Because, when you start something like this, you are doubtful yourself. You have so much going on within yourself and you don't want the anxiety and the doubts of your parents and relatives also to come on to you. So we avoided that, and for the first 6 months, we were simply running the business and trying to get by. And then when we started seeing that, okay, it's doing well, it's kind of successful, that's when we went and told our families.
So you did like the marketing agency business as your first business,
Yes.
right? Right after the work.
So funny story to that. So I think so back in 2014. So we did our engineering from BITS Pilani. We both are mechanical engineers. We did 4 years of engineering. Tried to find ourselves jobs. We took almost 6 months to get ourselves jobs. And in my case, my company was sort of getting dissolved, or that department was getting dissolved roughly almost 1.5 years into my first job. And we were supposed to get engaged at that point in time. So we went ahead with the engagement, and we didn't tell anybody that I had lost the job or, the company's getting dissolved. And we had a friend help out. He helped out with his credit card. He said, you know what, use it, open your business, best of luck. And we swiped this card. We took, I think, so roughly 20,000 dirhams for the licensing and the office and everything. And we started. We had a client on board from my job previous to that. And again, in business, things always don't go as per plan. So the client timelines got delayed by a month. So we had to sort of again plan. That was the first learning lesson in business, that, always plan for the worst. And post that, I mean, I still remember we got the client on board. We started servicing them. The first check that we received from them was almost 90,000 dirhams. And, after seeing a salary of say 6,000-7,000 dirhams a month back in the day, to seeing a check of 90,000 dirhams was a really
jackpot guy.
It was a really, really, good experience. I still remember she sent a photo of the check to her brother, and so it is
Have that.
Wow, that's incredible, because the risk taking is something that differentiates a normal person going to work and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Even if I have business ideas, I want to do a lot of things, but I don't have the risk taking in me
Correct.
that can take me to the next level. But I'm glad that became a business and a restaurant as well at the end, which we really enjoy for the weekends for sure.
Thank you.
So how did the name come up for the Bhukkar Cafe?
So right from the beginning, when we were building the brand, we knew that we wanted to build a nice big franchise brand that would have 50, 100 outlets eventually. And that's why the selection of the name was very, very important. We wanted to keep the name very casual, funny, sarcastic, but at the same time, it should be like a conversation starter between people. So obviously Indians understand that, but now that we are in mall locations, we have a lot of Emirati customers. They would always come up to us and ask, what does this Bhukkar Cafe mean? So it's our pleasure, it's our utmost pleasure to explain to them that Bhuk in Hindi is somebody who's hungry and Bhukkar is somebody who's always hungry. And the connotation behind this is also about the fact that we are not hungry for food, but we are hungry for new experiences. We are hungry for learning new things, so that the learning experience should never stop.
That's a great insight. If suppose you could name your cafe to something else, what would you call it?
Nah, I don't think so. I would change it. Although we do come up with like different ideas and concepts for doing spin-offs, and expanding the brand via different spin-off concepts of the Bhukkar Cafe. This is probably the first time we're speaking about this, but we've we come up with nice and unique names, and you'll probably see us roll these out down the line. But yes, yeah. Can't reveal it right now. It's top secret. Yeah.
But what are you saying, that there is this factor which makes Bhukkar Cafe unique?
So I think it's our authenticity. We always tried to stay very true to Indian street food. I've seen a lot of Indian brands try to do Indian food, and they would just have, butter chicken and dal makhni and naan on their menu. But that is not the representation of India. India is split into so many states. India is split into countless number of streets and nukkars, right? So we tried to capture the essence of Indian street food and bring it. We also have all these new launches that we have every now and then in a year. I think we do 6 to 7 different launches. And that's always something that our customers look forward to. We cannot keep serving the same old food and expect customers to have newer experiences. So I think our authenticity, our storytelling, and also the people behind our community are the top 3 things that make us very, very different.
You know what you said that I really liked is that Indian food is more than what it was served in UAE. There's so many options. And I think just after COVID is what people got educated, be it Indian or even expat Arabs or Emiratis, whoever it is, they actually got interested and want to try more cafes.
Yeah.
So I think this is Booker Cafe overall gives that vibe of India plus
Yeah.
the food that you guys serve around.
I think so. One word to describe the brand would be soulful. You know, it has a lot of soul in the decor, a lot of soul in the food, a lot of soul in the founders. You know, we try to come in front of the camera and, you know, do whatever we do in our own unique way and try to excite customers or get them interested into some new dishes that we're launching or a new festive menu that we launch. We try to keep the customers engaged. We want them to keep coming back for more. Not just for food, but just to experience the ambience, whether it is a live music event, you know, a stand-up comedy event, any workshops that we host at the cafe. We want people to sort of become a part of the community that we are creating. It's not just about food, it's a lot more, because at the end of the day, all of us are expats that are staying over here, and we somewhere miss home to a certain degree. We're trying to recreate that home for a lot of expats over here. We're trying to recreate that home for a lot of expats over here. And yeah.
So when you started, did you actually, who was your target audience? When you started, what was the target audience?
So when we started the first location in Karama, of course we expected Indians to be our main target audience. We expected youngsters to be the main target audience, but eventually in the first 6 to 8 months, we realized that it's not just going to be Indians. It's going to be a lot of Emiratis who are traveling all the way from Sharjah and all the other places and trying to visit us. And that's when we made sure that the next outlet onwards we place ourselves in mall locations, because mall locations you will have a lot of different customers, a lot of different nationalities. You open yourself up to educating a whole lot of global customers, which is what we did. And I think that's how we took that next step into becoming a bigger brand.
I think that's a smart move, because even for me, if I want to try a cuisine, there's a high possibility of me trying at a mall rather than especially going to a restaurant or a cafe to try a
True, that there is a decent amount of accidental discovery for brands and concepts inside malls, because once a customer enters the mall in itself is a business entity and they want to drive a lot of footfall to the mall. And inside the mall are many different vendors and many businesses that are also striving to get people, in through the door. So when we thought of opening in malls, we definitely thought that we would ideally want to target a wider audience and have a better reach in terms of our customers. And even the locations that we have selected currently for the various malls that we are currently in, it's each mall sort of targets a different nationality or a different mix of crowd that sort of walks into that particular mall, and for a variety of reasons. And we've seen this trend since we are in different locations. We also see the top selling items from each of from our menu in each of these locations, and that also sort of indicative of how people are experiencing our food, and we sort of customize our menus and launches based on that, so that we're able to please all people that are coming in. Yeah.
Do you think that placing yourself in the mall has helped you increase in your brand value as well?
Absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way. And whenever we do have new franchisees as well coming in, we do have, by the way, we have 400 plus inquiries for opening franchises in the UAE as we speak. However, we are very, very selective about the locations that we will open in. And not just small locations, we will only target locations that are a little bit of mass premium, where we are able to target different kinds of people and not just desis. And it has definitely increased our brand value multifold, because now we are in Majid Al Futtaim malls. We are in, for example, there are city centers, Zahia City Center. That's how we will get into Mall of the Emirates eventually and Dubai Mall eventually. So we will be able to make our dreams come true, which is literally putting Indian street food on a global map.
And traditionally, Indian food, I mean, I don't know whether if we started this trend, I don't think so we can take ownership of that. But traditionally, Indian food is known for, butter chicken, tandoori roti, or naan, biryani, and, and dal makhani, it's very stereotyped. Whereas when it comes to street food, because India is such a vast country and we've grown up and been in college in India, and we've literally spent 90% of our time eating food in and around town. So when you experience food at that level, we thought, let's sort of take that to the world. Something like a keema pao is not very commonly found over here. All right, it's one of our top selling dishes, and we serve it in a 3-layered tiffin in the Bombay dabba wala style. And our customers, I mean, who haven't discovered this dish, and they're pleasantly surprised when they come and order it at our cafe. So we try to create unique dishes and try our best to represent Indian street food at this scale.
And I've had such like funny conversations with customers at the outlets. I would tell them that keema pav, bun maska, akuri pav, these are all Irani dishes. They're like, Irani? Iran is all about kebabs. This is not what it means. Then I would have to tell them, no, these are Irani, Parsi immigrants who had come to India now. They've set up all these Irani cafes back in Bombay, and these are the dishes that they're famous for. So the same country or the same nationality can have so many different variations, and it has been our absolute pleasure in actually educating our customers into the different cultures within India as well.
Yeah, for sure. Rashmi, you mentioned one thing is about franchising. As a young brand, you manage to franchise. Plus, you have more inquiries. Do you want to talk a little more about it? How was the process? How did it go about?
Right. So as I said, we wanted to franchise right from the beginning. The name was chosen in such a way. The next steps that we had taken, the branding, all of that was done in such a way. We decided to franchise back in 2021, and all the inquiries had started coming in, and we sold the first couple. And 2022 we opened Dera City Center, then we opened Silicon Central. Then 2023 we opened Zahia City Center and Festival Plaza as well. We have one in Bits Pilani. Now we're opening one more this year, at the end of this year. So I feel like we chose this way because the easiest way to grow a brand is via franchising only. People normally come to me and ask me that why don't you open all of these outlets by yourself? We can do that, but we'll have to stop at a certain point. I can open, maybe I have the investment and the budgets to open 10 locations, 15 locations, 20 locations. But if I have to do 100 or 500, it's impossible. It's physically impossible, financially impossible, and it's impossible to manage all of that operationally as well. So franchising is the easiest way to grow a brand, wherein we are actually invested in doing the R&D for the brand and investing in all of the branding work and coming up with all these new dishes, ideas, so that the franchisees have it very easy. All they have to do is execute it and implement it. So if somebody wants to open a restaurant, I think taking up a franchise of an existing brand is the easiest way for them to go about.
Okay, the brand value already comes with the restaurant that you're opening. So the location selection is also something that you guys help
Yes,
in.
everything we do, we start with the site selection, and once we select the site, we have the design done by our team. We have a team which actually makes a 3D design of the entire store. We have all of our vendors that are sent, so the franchisee they're trained in every aspect basically. So it's like a crash course in opening a restaurant.
Yeah. But you mentioned one thing about you guys coming in front of the camera as founders. Do you think that has impacted? And did you start since 2018 when the brand formed? Or did you eventually later, when you saw the trend, you started?
So I think so. Back in the day when we started, we also sort of adapt to the trends of marketing or how social media platforms evolve. Back in the day there wasn't TikTok, there was just Facebook and Instagram at that point in time, and things were mainly to do with photos in the very beginning. The whole video format, is relatively 3 to 4, 5 years old. And we onboarded somebody in our team who helped us shoot our franchise video. All right. And I mean, that's Twinkle. She's an influencer now. All right. And
Which year?
This was, I think, so back in
2020.
2020.
She's the one who actually coaxed us to
come
in
in
front of the camera because who else would tell our story better than ourselves?
For sure.
And that was a really good push from her, and she created our first franchise video, which we put up on YouTube. And it was nice and funny and shot very well, edited very well. And that sort of got us rolling into the whole video format. And, she worked with us for quite some time. And she used to come up with a lot of ideas. Reshmi used to come up with a lot of ideas. And we sort of evolved with the entire marketing process, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay. Do you want to drink water?
No.
Cool. Do you think that coming in front of the camera as a co-founders and founders, did it really help with the brand before you getting on front of the camera and later? Because now it has become a trend that every founder wants to be in front of the camera to tell the story about it. In terms of business, did you see any impact?
I think we did. Earlier, see, when I talk about authenticity and soul of a brand, the easiest way for anybody to deliver that is via the people behind the brand. So it is not just us who come in front of the camera, but we have our staff, we have our head chef. We want to make it a people's brand basically. And I know when you're saying that there are other brands also where co-founders, it's a trend that people who are founders, they would come in front of the camera, but sometimes I feel like a lot of people do scripted things.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We like to be as authentic and as funny and as ourselves, in front of the camera, and I think that makes people relate to us. That makes it in a way that they wouldn't hesitate to reach out to us in case of anything.
Yeah, that's. You want to add something? Okay, cool. One thing with the food is the delivery apps.
Yeah.
What is your take on the same?
So from the very beginning, and then there's a story behind this as well. So one of the aggregators back in the day, they came up with a very aggressive delivery campaign. It was No Cooking Friday, I remember.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll not take names, but yeah. So it was No Cooking Friday, and it started with No Cooking Friday, and they had a crazy number of orders on that day. We got decent amount of deliveries, and then that No Cooking Friday became No Cooking Week. Alright, and then that No Cooking Week has become eternal no cooking, where people are just getting flat 50% discounts. So coming to your question, we don't focus much on the delivery business. We do it as a necessary evil. Our delivery business probably constitutes maybe 5% of our entire volume. We are a very experiential brand. We want people to come out for the traditional dining experience, come out with their family, spend time, talk over a table, read our menu. When they enter a cafe, look at the walls, talk about things. That's the sort of brand that we look and strive to create. Delivery is where you sit at home. I do understand it's necessary, so we do it. But you sit at home, you watch TV, you eat your food, and that's done. We ourselves do order in, but we always prefer to sort of drive down to any restaurant and experience the food then and there. So we are on delivery apps, but we don't focus too much.
Do you think that once you start focusing, your business might just tenfold?
Not really. So, and you can check with any and every. So we're a part of the restaurant community over here, and nobody really is happy with deliveries because they do it as, again, a necessary evil. A lot of people have the business models which are completely delivery dependent. Also, the same aggregator sort of had to shut operations. All right, and a lot of people whose businesses were purely delivery based were sort of gone. They had to shut their restaurants, or they had to shut those lines of revenue for themselves. And it becomes, for a business to be too dependent on anything is bad, as is in any sphere of life. Being too dependent on deliveries is not very healthy for a business because it's not sustainable in the long term. Aggregator commissions are typically 30 to 35%. Customers don't order unless they see a 50% discount capped at 80-20 or capped at 80-30. There are marketing costs to position yourself on these aggregator platforms. So it's sort of not a very sustainable model. I highly doubt anybody's business will 10x. That's why you see a lot of big brands or big chains, they redirect customers to their own apps.
Yes.
They do it
Eventually.
Yeah. And you have to understand that there are certain brands and concepts that are delivery friendly. Now, you'll see the likes of fried chicken or burgers are very delivery friendly. So those chains or brands can do better in terms of deliveries. And if I want to eat a certain fried chicken, I will only be loyal to that brand. That's the sort of customer relation that they have. But yeah, if you want to add something, yes.
No, I think the margins are way too little. So I understand when you said that business can increase. Yes, top line revenue can definitely increase 10x, but your margins are too little and there's too much effort involved by all parties to make sense of it. And this is very different from other countries, by the way. So this consumer purchasing behavior that is completely ruined in the UAE because of all these, deep discounting is not prevalent in the UK or even in Saudi or any other country that you go to. People, like if you're ordering food in, it's a convenience for the customer and the customer is expected to pay the premium, not the other way around. And here in UAE, the only person who is actually benefiting is the customer, and everybody else in the entire ecosystem, like the restaurant or the aggregator or the rider, they are not benefiting at all.
Got it. As a consumer, of course, the discount is something that we look for, and wherever discount is offered is the priority while ordering the food. But from the other aspect, this is the first time I'm actually understanding that even if, honestly speaking, also it is said that food is the business which has the highest margin. So in my mind, when you're selling something for 100 and then giving me a 50% off, selling me for 50 dirham, you're still making a good amount of revenue is what a consumer thinks.
Correct, but then the aggregator commissions are about 30 to 35%. That gets deducted. There's food cost, there's packaging cost, so many things. So that it is not sustainable. And also, as a consumer, even I have gotten accustomed to, discounting and expecting discounting when I'm shopping. But then, just take a step back and think about it. If a restaurant is doing so much deep discounting, for example, if somebody is giving a dish away, like a biryani away for 1 dirham, think about the back end. Are there, like the staff they have, do they have proper visas? Are they getting paid well? Is the ecosystem that they're basing this deep discounting on legitimate enough? So if a business is running properly with all the authorities and all the things properly done, visas and wages and everything properly, it is not possible to deep discount to this degree.
So do you think that when a business is launched, there are high possibilities of restaurants or cafes to go on 50% off with all these delivery apps? They see a surge in the business because, again, that's my priority as a consumer. But as soon as the discounts go off, the business dips because they are not able to build a brand. It again comes back to the brand value and the brand.
Customers become loyal to the discount. They become loyal to the discount, not even the aggregator. So what typically happens is you'll open one app, all right. You'll see that, okay, are they giving a good discount? You'll compare it with the other app, then you'll switch to the other app. So the customer, if he decides to eat something, he will check all the apps. And he's only loyal to the discount. Wherever he gets a maximum discount, he'll order from that. I do understand that apps are running, the free deliveries with their subscription model. So you'll see trends change, where apps are finding different ways to monetize and get revenue rather than just delivering food. Because even in India, the top aggregators over there aren't making money; they're bleeding. So, which again goes on to say that it's not a very sustainable model.
The biggest aggregators in India, in UAE, they are reporting year-on-year losses of millions and millions of dollars. And why they are doing it, why they are in this business at all? Because they are looking at it as a continuous way of getting more and more customers onto their platform. And they have this hope that eventually one day they will be the only aggregator left. But it's a hope. I don't think that it is sustainable at all.
And during this period also, I think it's a valuation game. They're looking at the top line. What's the total revenue that they're getting out of this?
And even from a customer's perspective, when you're on an online delivery app, there's no experience. Everything that you're ordering is a commodity. मतलब आपको अगर fried rice खाना है, क्या फर्क पड़ता है कहाँ से आप order कर रहे हो? It's the taste.
The cheaper the better. If I don't find the taste good, I'll order from the net.
And it's not going to be so different also, right? I mean, there's nothing to compare. You can order from a cafeteria also who's giving you a fried rice for 10 dirhams.
Correct. Reshma, you just one thing you mentioned about the consumer behavior. Have you seen the selection of dishes that happens at the cafe basis, the nationality that person comes in?
Absolutely. So one of
Make it less spicy. Is that one thing?
So one of the things that we see in like our outlet in Zahia City Center, it's a very premium outlet. It's in Sharjah, and I think 60-70% of the customers there are Emirati. And they don't understand this Indian street food that we were talking about. They understand butter chicken, they understand biryani. But what I like about them is that they come in, they order their biryani, they order their butter chicken, they order their naan, but then they explore the rest of the menu and then they wait for the server to explain them what is a Mithi Bai grill sandwich, for example, And chaat, they really love chaat. They don't like pani puri because it's too spicy, but they love dahi batata puri, right? Which is a revelation for me because, okay.
And all of our staff also is sort of trained to sort of educate the customers about the different items on the menu. So we have our standard menu that gives the look and feel of an old Indian register. But we also have something which is a food book where customers can just scan the QR code and they can take a look at all the dishes. And all of our dishes are presented in a very unique way. So if somebody wants to try it out, they like the photo, they ask about the flavors, the staff is trained to educate the customer. And if they are feeling experimental, they can definitely order it and try it. And we ourselves through our social media also look to educate people on the dishes on our menu. Of course, we come up with viral sort of, I mean, keeping up with the Dubai trend of doing everything viral. We try to do as much viral stuff as we can, come up with unique dishes, new launches, and we try our best to educate customers about what we are offering.
Yeah, before we get into this food innovation sectors, I have a lot of questions related to that. I just have one last marketing aspect question is that I've not seen a lot of food business, restaurant business do digital ads. Social media, yes, you're maintaining your page, you're doing your influencer marketing, but what's your take on the digital marketing aspect when it comes to food?
So I think so far our branding work and marketing work has been pretty much organic. We are not we don't invest in paid marketing at all, or we do it to a very lesser degree, even if it is on social media platforms. So I wouldn't be the right person to answer this. Maybe there is potential in doing that, but I think most of our business, franchising, everything has grown because of word of mouth and organic marketing and people sharing our content organically.
Now, but when it comes to digital ads, I mean, or when it comes to marketing using a digital platform, we look at or we categorize it into typically three parts. One is our own content that we create. All right. Whether we need to boost that content or we put a certain ad budget to boost it, or if, I mean, our main goal is always to create, the most viral sort of content with the perfect hook that people sort of get engaged in. And we don't have to really run any paid marketing on that. The second would be influencer collaborations. We work with a wide set of influencers over here to promote any new launches that we are doing. So that's, I feel, one of the most effective ways, given the UAE market, is one of the most effective ways to sort of get the information out and educate customers. The third would be running Instagram ads or Google ads. We limit our budgets to a bare minimum on that. And that is primarily for we don't do it for offers as such, but we do it for events. So suppose we're hosting an event, then we'll run an ad for that. A lot of people do inquire about these events. The purpose of running the ad for an event is, suppose we put it up in a story and a customer doesn't see it. So to expand the reach of that, suppose they want to come down for a live music or a stand-up comedy, or we need to take bookings for an event. That's the main reason we run ads.
Yeah. I think social media and organic social media and word of mouth. These are the two biggest thing of marketing and the basic pillar for any food business. If I don't like the food, I'm not going to recommend. If somebody's going, I'll say Majja.
Correct.
I think we also have a lot of UGC, user generated content, and sometimes we don't have to create a lot of content ourselves because our customers are, so brilliantly doing it on our behalf.
Yeah. For sure. Again, it's because of the experience, the interior, the aesthetics that we spoke about, and also the presentation of the food. If I go, I want to take a Instagram story saying that I'm at Booker Cafe and this is what I'm eating. But yes, there was a lot of thought behind the actual thing that is right now. Let's go to my favorite segment, food innovation.
Well, I think so. She's going to take up that segment.
How many, you already answered this, like you launched like 5 to 6 such dishes that really goes viral.
Not dishes, 5 to 6 main seasonal launches.
Seasonal launches.
Like the summer launch of ours is extremely popular. We have a mango menu that comes up every summer, and everybody's looking forward to ki is baar kya naya hai. Like last year we had the mango pizza that was viral.
Yeah.
So every year they're looking forward to something new. So, and I don't want to disappoint our customers because I'm always thinking ki because ideas ki bhi ek limit hoti hai. But I'm constantly thinking what best can we do with this fruit and how can we, present it in a way that is also tasty but also viral.
Like certain things we keep constant along the years in our launches, like we do Amras Puri.
Yeah.
Customers love the Amras Puri that we serve, and I think so even after the mango menu finishes, I think so we still get calls from customers, why is this not available?
And our staff, we sometimes forget to, put it off the delivery apps or something. And people would still keep on ordering and our staff calls us ki, ma'am, ye band kar do, khatam ho gaya, mangoes nahi hai aur.
So what's the thought process behind all of these launches? How do you sort out your calendars? How do you come up with innovation?
Right. So first of all, me and my team, we sit and decide what are the launches going to be. So we have the summer menu, we have the festive menu that we just launched, which is around the Diwali, 1 month prior to Diwali. Then we have winter, then we have Ramadan that comes up. So 4 to 5 different launch periods are there. And within those launch periods, we also come up with some themes. right? So this year for festive menu, I wanted to create a nice festive thali. Because like during the Sera and Diwali, people like to sit and enjoy a wide variety of thali, like thali dishes with kara prasad and all these different things. So we had that, and then comes the experimentation part. So couple of experimental dishes that we did in the festive menu. To the one video that got viral was gajar ka halwa spring rolls.
Doubt. I remember.
So a lot of people are talking about a lot of negative things on the video as well. But I feel like anything to go viral on social media these days, it cannot just happen with positivity.
Yeah.
People need to talk about it, whether it's negative, positive, mild, it doesn't matter. People just need to talk about it.
Before you continue, I want to add, like, for example, I did not try that dish, but because I saw that video, I have a recall for it.
Yeah.
So I think this is also, maybe today they won't try, tomorrow they won't try, but the third time they see, "Arey, ye kya kar rahe?"
Correct.
I want to go and try it.
Correct. And also, when we launch something viral, we want to increase our followers and get the views and get people talking about it. The end game is not for people to come and try that dish. The end game is brand awareness and people to come try the Bhukkar Cafe.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if they tried that dish or they try the regular biryani and butter chicken, but ultimately that video is going to get people to recall the brand.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if like it's controversial, I have tried it. I've gotten people in our outlets to try it, like the customers. Like randomly, I would go and make them try it, and it's always got such great reviews. Whenever we do something experimental, I always ensure that the flavor and what I'm talking about in that dish is at par. So gajar halwa spring roll is basically gajar ka halwa stuffed inside a spring roll wrapper and fried, and then it's served with more gajar ka halwa and some ice cream. So it's got the textural variation as well. You've got the crunch, you've got the ghee and the meetha from the gajar ka halwa and the smoothness from the ice cream. It's hot and crispy and it's also cold with the ice cream. So it ticks all the boxes of a good dessert as well.
So again, like I said, all the ideation over morning coffee. Now, like, you know what? Do you think we should add this to the menu? And she comes up to me and I say, "Are you sure? Do you think customers will like it?" And then we end up trying it. Okay, let's just give it a try. Let's try it at one of our cafes. Okay, we go to our chef. We need to do this. We try it out, and then the moment we taste it, like, I mean, it's a whole different experience. I'm like, wow, this turned out so good. I still remember last year we did the mango pizza, and I just saw, like, I was so against it. I said, mango pizza? Are you serious? Like, people hate pineapple on a pizza. We're doing mango. It's like sweet and pizza. And the moment we tried it, and I myself was surprised, like, wow, it can taste so good. And then we've had customers, we recommended, try the mango pizza. They're like, "Are you sure?" And, when they try it, they actually understand how the flavors sort of balance out in that dish, and they end up loving it. So it's always, people fighting in comments is going to be something that we can't really control.
Yeah.
I mean, let them, they're giving us the reach. That's good for us. But, I mean, when you actually order the dish and try it and then give feedback, that's a whole different experience or a whole different feedback mechanism than just looking at a video and commenting.
Yeah. Like, I remember there was this one video of some random place in India going viral about gulab jamun paratha.
Oh, we did that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what happened? So traditionally, in my mind, paratha cannot be this. I can eat chini wala.
Yeah.
But when I saw the video, I'm like, this might taste good.
Yeah.
It's just that our taste bar and vision, especially, is programmed in such a way that this does not belong here.
Like, so, and on social media also, we see like a lot of crazy ideas that people do. Like, they'll put Fanta and Maggie. So there is, so I mean, when ideating on dishes, that there is a line that even we will not cross. So there is a line that is not meant to be crossed. But it's at the same time, it's also about pushing the boundaries, and what we can innovate on, keeping in mind that you can stay true to the flavors that you're giving your customer.
I feel that food is supposed to be like a free-flowing
Yes.
emotion, and that it cannot be restrictive. And people who get triggered with these things on social media, they don't know what they're talking about. Back in the day, biryani was nothing. Somebody invented it. Somebody mixed the mutton and rice and all these spices. That's how you have biryani, right? So you need to keep experimenting with food. Sometimes it may taste good, sometimes it may not, but that should not stop your, creative process at all.
Yeah. But when it comes to the food viral. Okay, we have a season right now. It's mango. It's summer. You launched a menu. Have you seen in like the footfall increase when you are having the seasonal menu versus the regular one?
So we launch these items. We have a pretty decent POS system. We track at the back end what sort of traction is our menu
Yeah.
getting. We also compare it to the days that we put videos of certain items and what sort of in the following days what sort of sales is happening or what items are top grossing or top selling. And we do keep these metrics in mind while tracking any sales. And we do see that customers do end up ordering. And also, what we've seen is that when there's a physical menu of a festival launch or any special menu that we're launching, if it's kept on the table in terms of, say, a tent card or an information brochure or a menu, we see that customers tend to order those things more because they can see something. They can see the photo of the dish. They can read about it. So that always helps in influencing the customer purchasing behavior.
Yeah, it's about the story that you give to the customer that really influences the final decision that they make. To ask on this, does tourism, because we are big on tourism, UAE is, so does tourism also affect your business like in better way?
It does, because we do work with a lot of tourist companies as well, and they get their guests, especially to our Karama outlet, because it's more central for daily lunches or daily breakfast. So that does help. And our Dera City Center outlet is also quite centrally located. There are hotels attached to it, so we do discover a lot of new Indian customers traveling from Delhi, from Bombay, and they, when they find us, it seems like they're like giving out a sigh of relief because they need Indian food and they need all of these things. They
They cannot live without these.
So you can't take the Indianness out of an Indian person. My mom, whenever she travels to any country, she would always want her desi food. Irrespective of what country, whether you're in Switzerland or whether you're in Dubai, she wants to eat her, comfort food. It's something that you've grown up eating, that you like eating, that you relate to, and you're comfortable with the aspect of eating things that you know about.
For 2 days we can try, the third day we want a dal chawal.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Okay, so it was a great insight about your business. Now a little more about you guys. How does it happen working as a couple, running the same business, seeing each other 24 hours, making decisions? I would fight with my husband even if I was in the same company and different department. I'm not even kidding about it.
Well, so it's always about like striking the perfect balance. So we do have agreements, we do have disagreements, we do have ideas that we run by each other. We trust in each other's abilities. We sort of complement each other in different ways, and we try to use our strengths to sort of grow the brand. So it's always we put the brand first, and our opinions and ideas should always be to serve the brand. That's how we always look at it. So we are employed by the brand in a way, if you look at it.
Yeah.
I think we both are, the problem with us is not the team part, because I feel like we're a great team. Most of the things that we want in life and in our business are kind of aligned. It's just that the pressure of running the brand altogether is sometimes difficult on the relationship that we have. That is difficult, and we've been doing this for the last like 10-15 years without a break, right? I don't know how else to say this, but when we got engaged, for example, and he did not have a job, a lot of girls would not take that risk. I have seen people from my college, they would have dates and they would be dating other people, but they would always marry rich, right? But I don't know, I was naive.
That's reality now. Now it's the even worse, I feel. Going back, wait. How long do you guys know each other?
We know each other since
2006. So that is...
we started dating when we were in 10th. We know each other since 8th standard.
Maybe. Yeah. So she had moved to Bombay in my school, and we started dating about roughly 1.5 years after she joined school. And we dated 10th, and yeah, we've been dating ever since.
I took the very brave decision of being by his side during all the struggles and, building this together, which seems like a great inspirational story to the people watching us. But it's been so much struggle. I mean, it's been countless numbers of nights where, you would fight and cry and this and that. Sometimes I do really think that the girls who do marry rich, they do it for a reason, right? They want to avoid all of this struggle. But at the same time, the struggle is a part of who we've become, and maybe, the brand that we've built is a result of that.
Yeah, Reshma, I want to add here. So mine is an arranged marriage, okay? I was living here, but my husband decided, so we wanted to actually move to Canada and everything. So we thought that UAE is a very good platform for an international exposure, which is true. So he decided to quit his job, like a really well earning job, and move here with me. Initially, and back then, 2018 was a little tough time when it comes to corporate. Okay. The jobs were not great. People were just moving in, and a lot of things happened. And that 6 months, I got a job. I had a job. So seeing his mental health was also concerning because we would have fights. It was an arranged marriage. We literally just got married. I don't know you. We are fighting. How will this go? But you know, one thing that really changed is till today, that struggle really made our strong bond. The bond become very strong. And I feel that this is the thing. If I wanted, I could have married like a rich Patel, someone, I don't know, like a
Every relationship, goes through ups and downs.
Correct.
Whether you marry rich, you'll have some different problems. So problems exist in everybody's lives. It's just the type of problem will be different. All right. And any ups and downs just makes the relationship stronger. And again, I see a lot of new age people in these new age relationships. They aren't very serious or very committed.
Yeah.
And I think so people are commitment phobic. They're scared to commit.
You've heard the word situationship. Like,
I think
my husband was asking me, what does it even mean?
I think so we're from the 90s. So I think so we have a different, outlook to
Everything.
relationships.
Yeah.
And, if you commit to something, we always find ways to make it work. Whether that's building a brand, whether that's business, whether that's relationship, or doing anything in that matter, anything in life for that matter.
I think love is a choice. I mean, you said just now that you could have given up, but
Yeah, I could have.
it's a choice. You did not choose to give up. So
Yeah. Okay, let us end this podcast on a lighter note with the unfiltered segment, which is sweetened by Voca, my first sponsor ever. They are premium handcrafted luxury chocolates.
Oh, wow.
Can you give me that? Thank you.
this is giving me coffee. Exactly the hook I wanted to go.
Nice.
Copy with.
You should mention it also, I think. So maybe tag him in the video.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me find my question. Okay. So you guys are in food business. I'm gonna ask you who's the better cook.
She, 100%. 100%.
Do you cook?
No, I eat.
Not at all.
I cook sometimes, but with instructions from her.
Disastrous results.
I made bengan ka bhatta, which was so good. ये आज paratha, which was so good. I made khichdi, rajma chawal. I made so many.
I mean, very good food. Hello.
What about the kitchen ka haal later?
So I do the cleaning. Like, off lately, we've hired a cleaning lady who helps around.
Yeah.
But before that, I used to, I used to find washing dishes a very, stress relieving process.
Therapeutic.
Therapeutic.
Yeah. Okay. Describe each other in one word as business partners.
He's strong.
That's not a very good word. I would say fierce.
Fierce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's strong and relentless. He would never give up.
Yeah. If you could invite one celebrity at the cafe, who would it be?
Shah Rukh Khan,
Of course.
One celebrity at the cafe. Well, never really thought about that.
Crown Prince of Dubai.
Yeah, the Crown Prince.
Okay.
He's here.
Fair enough. Yeah. One dish that you've never eaten from your own menu.
None. We've eaten
Everything?
Yeah,
every.
pretty much.
Okay. Okay. Why did the tomato turn red?
Tomato was red from before only, right?
No, because it saw the salad dressing.
Oh. That'll be bad jokes.
Okay. So here's gift hamper for you guys. I'm just gonna keep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for being a part of the Fat Kid Show. It was fun.
It was so much fun talking and catching up.
Yes, I hope you guys had a good time and a good conversation.
Yes, it was up.
I love talking. And for the customers, always stay hungry, stay book card. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. If you like this video, do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. Like this video, comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye.